1960, Cologne, West Germany. I once drew plans to erase old churches for new party buildings. Today I catalogue bomb damage to save what is left. He writes it in pencil. In a blue-lined municipal notebook, he dates the page. He adds a location and a job title, Bauamt, Referatdenkmalschutz, Cathedral District. He then stops. He knows this line could not have been spoken a decade earlier. It does not excuse. It explains a path. He is Karl. He was an architect. He is now a restorer of churches on paper. He inventories cracked vaults. He measures blackened stones. He draws scar lines through nave and transept. He files forms. It took 15 years to arrive at this desk. The path runs through bricks carried by women, cigarettes used as money, ration cards and interrogations. The path runs through silence. May 9th, 1945. Cologne. The day after capitulation. The cathedral stands, perforated and soot-streaked. The city is rubble. Allied occupation reports call it a moon landscape. Hundreds of churches across Germany look like this. Parish records are stored in tin boxes in basements that smell like lime and smoke. The mathematics of loss begins now, not casualties tallied in dispatches. The arithmetic of rooms, loaves, gilt and paper. Karl is 32. He sketched facades with swagger in 1935. He drew a graduation project called Forum of the Gau. He was noticed by the Ministry for Public Works. He joined professional chambers required for employment. He signed a party membership card in 1937 to keep contracts. He wrote in his private notes, "Political questions bore me, buildings endure." He designed simple blocks faced with stone. He imagined straight streets and erased irregular medieval lines. Now he walks around Cologne with a canvas bag. He's not employed, he wants to work. The old draftsman's straightedge is in that bag. He lives in a room with an aunt because his own home is rubble. His wife is missing. The last letter came in January 1945. She described glass in the stairwell and a neighbor who set a pot of soup on a brazier. He goes to the Red Cross desk and leaves a name. The clerk writes it down and looks tired. June 1945. British troops administer the Rhineland. Curfews go up. Lights out at 21:00. No gathering in groups of more than 3. No political assembly. Hand in weapons, a proclamation says. British military government offices open in requisitioned villas. There is a flag. There is an office with a sign, Public Safety. There is another with a sign, Civil Affairs. There are queues outside the food office that begin before dawn. Night brings the mathematics of fear. Some nights are quiet. Some nights there are knocks. There is a silhouette in the doorway. There are whispers about retribution. There are rumors about Czechs in the east and Russians everywhere. There are rumors about trials. There is a list of names. British officers enter the Stadtplanungsamt, the city planning department. They bring notebooks. They ask to see maps. They ask for lists of personnel. They ask for files. They seal cabinets with tape. They set down a typewriter and begin to make new lists. Karl watches. He is not yet on any payroll. He offers to help carry rolled maps. He offers to change water in the ink pots. He's told to sit. He sits. The city is rubble. The word Trümmerfrauen enters the lexicon. It means women who move bricks. They wear scarves and wooden clogs. They stack bricks in piles of 100. For each usable brick, there is a notch in a tally. For each notch, there is a claim to a ration, to a claim to a day's wage. The mathematics of recovery begins with a brick in a hand. An Allied intelligence summary dated July 2, 1945 notes, population shows signs of shock, fatigue, and an eagerness to avoid problems. The women carry the city. The report mentions men in hiding. The report mentions former functionaries avoiding the light. In August 1945, Karl is called to fill out a questionnaire. The Fragebogen is 13 pages. It asks for names of relatives, organizations, positions held, publications, foreign trips, donations, oaths and acts. It asks for witnesses. It asks for things a man did in 1938 when the streets were full and the flags were red. He holds the paper. He looks at the small boxes. He writes in neat letters. He lists the Reich Chamber of Culture. He lists the Reich Labor Service for an architectural project. He lists his party membership number. He writes, entered for professional reasons. He writes, never held office. He writes, never made speeches. He writes, worked on municipal projects. He does not mention the sketch pinned on the wall in 1939 called New Civic Center that required the demolition of a Romanesque parish church. It never got built. The sketch is a memory and a sheet of paper at the bottom of a drawer burned in a raid. The Sprüchkammer sends a notice. There will be a hearing. The room is in a school taken over by the Allied authorities. A panel sits at a table. There is a British legal advisor. There is a German clerk. There is a witness who says he did not beat anyone. The categories are clear. Major offender, 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 lesser offender, follower, exonerated. The arithmetic of guilt fits on an official stamp. Karl is classified as a Mitläufer, a follower. He is told to report to the Municipal Works Office for rubble clearance planning. He is a draftsman again. In the winter of 1945-46, the temperature drops. Coal is scarce. The first hunger winter of the new era begins. Official nutrition for an adult in Cologne is measured in grams per day. 1,050 calories on some days. 1,050 calories on others. The mathematics of bread goes like this. A ration card is good for so many grams per day. The corner bakery has nothing by afternoon. A neighbor has a cousin who can get potatoes from a farmer near Bergisch Gladbach if one provides cigarettes. Cigarettes become currency. American soldiers go to the market with cartons. Prices are posted in chalk. Sugar is this many cigarettes. A coat is that many. A warm coat is more. Karl writes, today I traded a pewter cup for 5 packs. The farmer looked like he had already traded with 20 others. The city calls this unofficial exchange. The British call it black market activity. The registers in the food office show names and points and infractions. Allied patrols sometimes break up the market. People scatter like birds. They reassemble an hour later. Women in headscarves push carts. Children stand in lines with tin pails. Men return from camps in the east in dribs and drabs. They wear field grey coats and navy blue dungarees. They have hollow faces. They look at the city and stop talking. Allied photographs show them stepping off open-topped lorries by the thousands. The mathematics of missing shifts in the Red Cross lists. The lists on the wall under the word vermist change daily. Names are crossed out in pencil when a letter arrives. Names are underlined when someone says, I saw him in a camp near Minsk. Then silence comes again. Displaced persons live in camps near every major town. The British zone holds Poles, Jews, Ukrainians, Baltic people dragged west for work. They live in schoolrooms, barracks, requisitioned resorts. They organize councils. The Germans watch them. A British report dated October 1945 reads, DPs have priority for food in some cases, leading to resentment among locals. Another note reads, films of concentration camp conditions shown in cinemas to German population. Some viewers leave. Some look down. Karl is obliged to attend a screening. The Allied projector rattles. The screen shows bulldozers and bones. The voice on the soundtrack is cold. It says, "Death Mills." The lights come up. The woman next to him puts her hand to her mouth. In the street after, no one speaks. The mathematical difference between a sketch pinned to a wall and a victim pinned in place is no longer abstract. He goes home and does not sleep. The mathematics of denial takes its shape. Many say, "We did not know." Many say, "We were powerless." Many say, "I had children." Many say, "I did not think." The Spruchkammer registers record millions of cases. The numbers tell a story. By 1949, in the British zone, about 66% are classified as followers, 3% as offenders, fewer than 1% as offenders, fewer than 1% as major offenders, the rest exonerated. It is designed to get the lights on. The Allied authorities require stability more than thoroughness. The Cold War is beginning. The British want men who know how to build sewers. They also want informants in warehouses, files in order, and a population that does not starve. Karl's Spruchkammer file is thin. It contains a question about a speech at a rally. He did not speak. It contains a question about a letter of recommendation written for another young architect, a party youth. He wrote it. The panel stamps the file and places it in a stack. A clerk writes the code 3 and a note, "Employment permitted under supervision." Summer 1946. He is assigned to survey churches. It is mundane work and also a strange assignment. The city has too many churches to save. Cologne was once called the city of 100 churches. Now it has 100 shells. The people in the cultural office make lists: Romanesque, Gothic, Baroque, modern. They decide which to rebuild and which to stabilize as memorials. They attach numbers to apse and aisle. They mark lintels with chalk. They argue. He stands under a broken vault in St. Maria im Capitol. A chunk of stone is missing from a column. He measures the fracture. He notes the angle of fall in a small sketch. He writes, "North transept roof lost. Purlins absent. Masonry cracked along Second Bay. Baptistry intact." He goes to Gross St. Martin and tracks a crack around an arch. He walks into the nave of St. Columba and sees an open sky. He writes, "Total loss of roof. Partial survival of chapels." A photograph from this moment, now in a city archive, shows a man in a dark coat with a measurement stick against a scorched wall. The caption says only Bauaufnahme, 1946. He cannot avoid thinking about what he drew in 1938. In the student canteen, he once told a friend that the old churches could be moved or taken down for sightlines. He did not think of the 1,000 years in the stones. He thought of parades and orders. Now he touches the stones and feels their heat gone cold. The people burns the Storff and Stein 15. Schoolrooms. Adults lose weight. Says average 1 cents November population, 10-15 pounds since November. He opens a window and sees his aunt tear out the bottom drawer of an armoire. She looks at him. She shrugs. Denazification continues in fits. The tribunals become bored. They stamp cases quickly. This is the arithmetic of mercy and necessity. Each case takes an hour if done thoroughly. There are millions of cases. The math does not work. The lists of names turn into stacks. The stacks gather dust. 1947 also brings trains from the east. Germans expelled from Silesia, East Prussia, the Sudetenland arrive in columns. They carry sacks. They carry old certificates wrapped in cloth. They carry children and a grandmother. They carry the keys to houses they will never see again. They are called expellés, vertriebene. They are placed in converted schoolrooms in towns that are rubble. The arithmetic of rooms becomes dangerous. A 3-room apartment now has 6 adults and 4 children. The city's housing office posts lists. An Allied observer writes, locals resent distribution of rooms to expellees. Expellees resent being treated as beggars. Karl attends a meeting at the Bauamt. They speak about dividing the vault of a church to make a shelter for expellees. Someone says, this is a sacrilege. Someone else says, they are human beings. He says nothing. He draws a partition line across a nave. He chooses plywood instead of brick, so it can be removed later. He knows it may never be. He meets a family from Breslau assigned to his aunt's flat. The father is a locksmith. The mother is quiet. The child has a scar on his cheek. The father says only, we had to leave fast. The mother says, we walked, and then stops. Karl hears the word walked in every second sentence of people who survived that winter. He writes, they walked. We read. In the British zone, the Control Commission orders the removal of Nazi street names. They also order that the German police be restructured. They authorize municipal elections in 1946 and 1947. Crosses appear on ballots. People vote for stability. They vote for men with grey hair. They vote for men who say, we will not talk about yesterday, we will rebuild tomorrow. The mathematics of democracy is tested in a room where the heater is broken. In June 1948, the currency reform hits like a storm and a release. New money appears. The Deutsche Mark. There is a line at the registration office. Each person receives 40 marks. They count it at home. They put a note in a jar. The next day, shop windows are suddenly full. The black market dies in a day. Cigarettes go back to the lips. The new arithmetic of the market returns. A pair of shoes costs this many new marks. A loaf, a shirt, a trolley ride, a pot, a brick. The big words return to small things: cost, value, price. For Karl, the new money brings a new job offer. The Denkmalschutzamt monuments. Protection wants to form an archive of damage and plans. They call for applications. He presents his portfolio of surveys. He does not bring his sketches from 1938. They are ash. He sits before a committee. A man asks, what were you doing in 1943? He says, drafting for municipal housing, evacuee housing, air raid shelter maps. He is hired. He walks past the cathedral every day. He passes scaffolds. He passes men in hard hats. He passes the Madonna in the rubble, a statue that survived under debris, set under a makeshift canopy by a priest and a mason. He stops. He watches women leave flowers. The mathematics of consolation is immeasurable. It still counts. He catalogues. He is good at it. He draws precise lines. He notes the tool marks on a stone capital. He identifies a style, late Romanesque, c. 120. He knows the church before the war from postcards. He sees it now as a puzzle. He must match the pieces. He must not lie. He must not invent. He must not erase. 1949. The Federal Republic of Germany is founded in Bonn, a short train ride from Cologne. The Basic Law is promulgated on May 23rd. The Allied High Commissioners remain. Formal sovereignty is partial. Police reports from this year say, order restored in most cities, food sufficient, black market largely ended. They also say, political parties reorganized, CDU and SPD dominant. They also say, population suffers from war fatigue, unwillingness to dwell on past. An American officer writes, Germans have turned inward. Karl reads the newspaper. He sees that Parliament wants amnesties. He notes the return of men he knew in offices. The retired come back. The dismissed are reinstated. The 131 law is passed in 1951, reinstating war-displaced civil servants into the social welfare system. The mathematics are, it is not named forgiveness. It is called administrative necessity. It functions like forgiveness for many. He is promoted to Sachbearbeiter for medieval church inventories in 1952. He visits rural towns and notes chancel ruins and half-standing towers. In a village near the Ruhr, the pastor shows him a ledger. It has entries up to 1944, then water stains, then blank. The pastor says, "After that, there was no ink." Karl writes in his notebook, "After that, there were only stones." He meets men with pasts like his own. They say little. They say, "We were young." They say, "I never hit anyone." They say, "I joined the party to work." He has the same lines written in his file. He begins to see how a system uses men who did not ask questions but knew enough. He sees how the new state uses them again. The mathematics of guilt is redistributed. If Karl had ideas of modernity in 1938, the city has different ideas in 1953. It wants roads for cars. It wants wide boulevards. It wants electrical networks. It wants to forget certain corners. A minister comes to a ceremony for a rebuilt nave. A choir sings. The minister speaks about suffering. He enumerates bomb victims and expellees in a single breath. He does not mention Jews. He does not mention the camp in the forest 20 kilometers away. He does not mention the DPs who moved through the city. He speaks about war and tyranny, the formula being used in stone. The arithmetic of commemoration is simple and cruel. It subtracts names and keeps numbers. Karl's files grow. He writes, "Bundesarchiv copy requested" on a folder. He writes, "Photographs attached." He writes, "See also Allied military government document on emergency repairs." His notes are a modest map of a country coming to terms without saying the words. He adds numbers, he adds costs, he adds a tally of bells melted and recast. He adds a tally of altarpieces lost. He adds a tally of frescoes damaged beyond recall. He sometimes rides a train to Bonn. The seat across is taken by a man with a briefcase. The man is a civil servant. He talks about derailing the communist threat. He talks about new beginning. He talks about economic miracles as if they erase math done earlier. Karl listens. He hears in the language of the 1950s a thin coat of paint over a cracked wall. He writes in his notebook, "We learned to plaster over rather than relay the stone." Marshall Plan shipments arrive in 1950-1951. Crates stamped with stars are offloaded in ports and sent inland. They contain powdered milk. They contain machines. They contain wire. They also bring advisors and accountants. They bring calculators for the new arithmetic of living standards. The Wirtschaftswunder is measured in exports and new kitchen appliances. The historian's mind will later count washing machines per household and dwellings completed per year. In the files of the city's planning office, the numbers show something gentler: permits for windows repaired, roofs tiled, gutters fixed, new stoves installed. The arithmetic of comfort is the long shadow of a loaf of bread. Karl finds a place in this. He is not proud. He is not ashamed. He is useful. He knows that usefulness can hide a past, but he continues to draw. He grows older. He marries again in 1954. The woman is a widow. Her first husband went missing in 1943. She does not talk about it. They go to church sometimes and sit in a pew under a fresh plastered arch. He looks up at a blank patch where a crucifix might have been. He counts the patches. 1955. West Germany joins NATO. The divisions of the Cold War harden. The British are still present, but the tone changes. They are partners now. West German soldiers train with British and American ones in North Rhine-Westphalia. Anti-communism leaves its mark on files. The Office for the Protection of the Constitution opens more folders on the political left. The mathematics of suspicion shifts. A civil servant jokes in a corridor. Denazification over. Now anti-communization. A joke is a form of policy. Carl hears it and says nothing. He walks back to his desk and writes, St. Severin roof beam schedule. He takes part in one project that compels him to speak. It is the partial rebuilding of St. Columba. There is a debate. Should the ruin be left as a memorial? Should a new building be inserted? A young architect proposes a chapel inserted into the ruin, leaving the war damage visible. The idea shocks some. It is built. People come to pray in the shadow of the broken wall. Carl is sent to measure the remnants and reconcile old ground plans with new footings. He writes, "We built a house inside of ruin. For once, we did not erase the whole." The files tell him that the British destroyed some cities as much as bombs destroyed his illusions. He reads Allied reports to the effect that the bombing campaign will be judged by historians. He closes the folder. He knows the numbers on that side too. He remembers nights in 1942 when the sky burned and the street was rivered with fire. He knows that he was in a shelter then, listening to a building above him die. He knows that the sounds outside were children and dogs and doors. He knows that he walked out and saw a church's spire lying in a street and thought, now we must plan for its door to be straight. He tries not to remember. 1958. The Ulm trial brings the first public proceeding against members of an Einsatzkommando. The newspapers print details about shootings in Eastern Europe. A prosecutor named Bauer insists that criminal silence is no longer possible. The words feel new and old. Carl reads them in the morning train. He folds the paper and watches the river outside. He thinks of DPs in 1945. He thinks of the seventh question on his form. He thinks of his silence in 1938 when his professor said that the Gothic line was sick and the classical line was healthy. He thinks our drawing boards were syringes. School books come into his office because he is asked to approve illustrations of old churches. He reads the text around the pictures. He finds that the passage on 1933 is 1 page. The passage on expulsion is 3 pages. The passage on bombing is 2 pages. The passage on Jews is a paragraph. The mathematics of memory has its own arithmetic. It is measured in pages. It is measured in the number of times children read a phrase, "We too were victims." He writes a letter to the school office, "Please add the date of consecration of St. Andreas 974 and correct the caption to indicate Gothic choir added in 1220. He does not write, "Please add 2 pages on the people who were not in these churches." He is a small functionary. He chooses a small functionary. He chooses a small correction. He knows that others must make the large ones. In the mid-1950s, expellees hold rallies. Banners read, "Right to homeland." They sing. They carry coals. There are coat of arms badges of cities lost. In one, he sees the crest of Breslau on a lapel and recognizes the locksmith he met in 1947. They nod. The locksmith says, "We are still waiting." Carl says, "So are we." The arithmetic of waiting cannot be printed in a ledger. It occurs in a glance on a tram. He keeps certain things and places others in trash. He keeps his Spruchkammer finding in a folder. He hides it. He holds a small stack of letters that include a note from his first wife signed with her initial. He cannot throw it away. He cannot look at it. He leaves it in a drawer. He writes on it in pencil, "Untouched." He knows that the past is a drawer like this. The state opens some, the state closes others. There is a file in an office in the British Archives that mentions his name only as a number. It says, "Case 283, Category 3, permitted to work." The file is one of thousands. The file is a card in a system. The system is a story. Cologne changes. The cranes are everywhere. The new tower blocks rise. The new shops display radios. The girls wear skirts cut different than in 1937. The boys have hair like Americans. The trains run on time again with a different engine noise and a new smell of diesel. People do not speak of the war except in relation to pensions or the price of bricks. He finds himself being asked to speak at a parish evening about the city's old churches in today's world. He brings slides. He shows a picture of St. Cunibert before the war, after, and now. He keeps his voice even. He uses numbers. He says cost, stone, years, work, community. He avoids we. The mathematics of survival involves a bargain. The democracy around him rests upon unspoken assumptions. 1, that many who went along are still in place. 2, that only so much can be said at once. 3, that money and quiet make new habits. 4, that if you build a wall where a window was, the light changes and people learn to live in different shade. He meets a young priest who asks whether the old mural should be repainted. Carl says, "No, let the plaster show." They leave white walls in a church and one jagged hole where the morning light slants in like a blade. Parishioners complain for a year. Then they shrug. Then they say, "It is beautiful." He writes this down. He sees an analogy he does not speak. A city leaves some wounds visible so that the body remembers what healed and what did not. 1960. He is asked to prepare a report for the Land Office, a general history of war damage to ecclesiastical buildings in the Cologne district. He writes the first line in his notebook in private. "First, I once drew plans to erase old churches for new party buildings. Today I catalogue bomb damage to save what is left." He looks at it and thinks it is dramatic. He then writes a more official sentence in the report. The present report summarizes losses and measures. In the private notebook he continues. January 20, 1960. He writes, "If I am honest, my repentance is technical. I believe in the rightness of a vault. I believe in the necessity of humility before an arch that has stood for 1,000 years. My politics are the geometry of a semicircle." When I look at photographs of the rallies in 1936, I see a passion for straight lines that killed curved ones. I participated. I did not kill with my hands. I killed with a rubber stamp. He describes a meeting at the Denazification Commission in 1946. He writes, "The man across from me looked like a butcher. He stamped Mitläufer as if pressing sausage into a casing. It was not justice. It was a sausage factory for the conscience." He adds, "We needed sausages." He writes about the hungry winter. "I learned to divide a potato into 8. Each slice was mathematics done with a knife." He writes about expellees. "The locksmith from Breslau repaired our door without payment. He said, it was a little thing. He meant, we have nothing else." He writes about the DP camp near the city. "I passed the camp and saw a man behind a wire fence. He was younger than me, but older. He looked at me without hatred. He looked at me as if I were transparent. He was waiting to go somewhere. I was waiting to be forgiven. I did not understand then that he did not have to hate me for me to be guilty." He writes about school books. "My stepdaughter showed me a page. Many German cities were destroyed. I asked her where the Jews were on the page. She said, they were somewhere else. We are still somewhere else." He writes about the new Germany. "I know what a democracy feels like when it is a choice of bread and silence. Our new order asks us not to lie, only to not speak everything at once. Is that a lie? I don't know. It feels like a long corridor with closed doors and conversations taking place just behind. We can hear them. We do not knock." He opens a file marked St. Maria Liskirchen, lateral wall stability. It contains calculations. He is good at calculations. He writes in a margin, "There is also the mathematics of guilt, force vectors applied to memory, weight of the past on present pillars, Force vectors applied to memory. Shear stress along the future. He copies a page from an Allied occupation report into his notebook. Population exhibits tendency to immediate practical cooperation, avoids political discussion. He writes under it, "They knew us." His role is humble. He is a clerk of the sacred. He believes that if he can make one arch steady, he has paid back some of what he took. This is superstition as much as ethics. He knows it and does it anyway. He aches to be absolved by a stone holding. The city breaks and renews. Streets are laid over foundations of Roman houses. Trams clatter. A shop window display announces a sale on refrigerators that make ice at the push of a lever. A boy sticks his tongue to a cube. He laughs. The past is there in the wall behind him, a darker patch plastered in 1947. It shows through paint. People do not notice unless they are trained. Carl is trained. He attends a memorial for an architect colleague who died in 1959. The man was a genius. He was also a party member once. The eulogy is all design, nothing on oaths. The arithmetic of an obituary is the sum of lines omitted. In his files there is a memorandum about a bell. The bell is cracked. It was recast in 1952 from bronze requisitioned in 1942 from another church's bells. The original inscription thanked a donor in 1761. The new inscription says, "To the glory of God and in memory of the war." Carl writes a note suggesting the addition of another line, "and of those the war murdered." The church council ignores him. He understands. He files the memo. He files the bell's weight. He files the date of its hanging. He thinks in weights now. Bronzes melted and recast. Names melted and recast. Names melted and recast. Names melted and recast. A British colonel once wrote in 1946 in his domestic diary, now in a university archive, "The Germans are recovering with a thoroughness that is at once admirable and disquieting. They will make their city walls solid. Whether they will make their moral walls is another question." Carl reads this line years later in a magazine. He does not bristle. He thinks, we build both with different mortars. He encounters once a Jewish man who has returned to see a house. The man stands in the street and looks at a blank facade where a plaque will someday be affixed. He holds a piece of paper with an address. He does not knock on the new door. He steps back. Carl recognizes the script on the paper, the round, slanting hand from before. He does not speak. He stands 3 meters away. He watches the hawthorn hedge. The man folds the paper and puts it away. He leaves. Carl wants to call him back. He does not. He writes later, "We are village men standing at a fence while a pilgrim passes. We do not offer water. On our consciences is dust." He is honest enough to know that he has benefited. The new state gave him a job. The old state did too. He served both with ink. He wishes he had been a braver man in 1933. He wonders if such a thing exists, a brave draftsman. He thinks courage is a thing for men on barricades. He thinks he could have refused a third line in a drawing. He could have left a church intact. He could have said, "Do not erase this." He did not. He drew the erasures. His case file in the city contains a note, "Excellent compliance." His wife says, "You are fixed now in your place." She means, "You are safe." He smiles and nods. He does not tell her that he dreams of bricks falling in slow motion. He does not tell her that he went to see the memorial at the site of a synagogue destroyed in 1938 and that he stood there until the light changed. He does not tell her that he wrote, "Forgiveness is a function without a solution," in his pocket notebook and then crossed it out as pretentious. A boy he mentors, a new architect, asks about the war. The boy asks bluntly. Carl says, "We drew what we were told." The boy says, I will not do that. Carl nods and thinks, there will be orders again. He does not say it. He says, learn to see old stone as your superior. When the Eichmann capture is reported in May 1960, the office talks. There is unease. There is unease. There is a joke about Argentina. There is a joke about Argentina. Someone says, he should hang. Someone else says, it will never end. Carl says nothing. He goes home and opens a book about Gothic architecture. He reads about the concept of Ursprung, springing of an arch, the place where the curved line leaves the straight. He marks the page. He writes, where we left straightness is the place we are guilty. He knows the metaphor is too tidy. He keeps it anyway. He flips through Allied military government reports and his own memos and traces the arithmetic of his life. It runs like this: a party card number, a question answered, yes, a stamp category 3, a brick counted into a pile, a ration card notch, a DM note folded, a permit for a scaffolding, a bill for lime, a schedule for roof beams, a note in a schoolbook margin, a letter to a council about a Bell Inska.